Thanks, Jimmy. Good evening, folks, and welcome to our fourth webinar for this pilot phase one of the Green Clubs. I really appreciate you taking the time. We all know it's a busy time for our clubs. There's games going on in every club this evening, so we really appreciate you taking the effort to attend. A special thanks to Sinead Ninanian for the Regional Waste Centre for coming and being our expert partner tonight and presenting. So again, thanks very much, and hope you get some valuable information tonight. Thanks, Jimmy.
Thanks very much, Pádraig. I'll hand over to yourself, Mida.
Yeah, thanks, Jimmy. Yeah, we have a nice tight agenda today, so hopefully we won't be keeping people too long, but myself, Jimmy, Pádraig and Sinead will be here for if people want to hang on, if any have questions and answers. So the agenda is Sinead's going to, many of you familiar with Sinead from the Regional Waste Management Planning Offices. So she's going to give an overview of the good principles of waste management, what's in the toolkit and some tips. And then we get some club experience from Brian from Park Ratheniska, who really took not only with the waste management kind of mission, but also the toolkit resources and ran with them. So looking forward to hearing Brian's experience there. And I see a few other clubs that were involved in waste in phase one. So if you want to chime in too, we'd love to hear from you. And then there'll be just a few minutes for myself. This is an all-island webinar. So even though most of the principles and that Sinead will be covering are universal, there obviously are some differences across the jurisdictions. So we'll just touch on those, and then we'll have an open Q&A session. Again, if you want to ask us, and especially Sinead, the expert, any questions, but if as always, if you have experiences or tips from your club for other clubs on here, we're always really happy to hear from you. So with that, I'll hand over to Sinead, who will get into the meat of the session. So if you want to head on there, Sinead.
Sinead's on mute.
Sinead, if you could unmute yourself there. Sorry, we can't hear you. The first gremlins for the
Is that
night.
better?
Yeah,
yeah, better?
Perfect, yeah, it's better,
Right.
but your screen
Sorry,
has...
I just had to go. Yeah, I had to tentatively go back there just in case everything would get out of kilter. So thanks, Mida, and good evening, everybody. As Mida was saying there, my name is Sinead Ninanian, and I work in the Connacht Ulster Regional Waste Management Planning Offices. And I in the Regional Waste Management Planning Office in Connacht Ulster, along with my colleagues in the Southern region and in the Eastern Midlands region, we're lucky enough to be part of this great programme with Pádraig, Mida and Jimmy. And our contribution has been around the whole area of waste and waste management in green clubs. So we've been involved in the programme for over probably the last year and a half or so, and closely involved with a lot of the participants in phase one. And I suppose what we want to do this evening is maybe share some of those experiences with you and go through, I suppose, what we have prepared that will help and guide clubs in addressing the issues around waste management, but doing it in a way that's probably simple and as least time consuming. So I suppose with that in mind, what I'm going to do just for the next 10 minutes or so is just go through maybe the 4 key areas that we would recommend that all clubs undertaking this waste journey would look at. And then also I'm going to share with you, or go through rather with you, some of the assets that we've prepared, show you what they look like and show you where you can find them. So just to kick off, just in relation to the 4 key areas, there are 4 areas that are, I suppose, imperative that a club would consider or certainly look at when addressing the whole area of waste. And the first one of those is in relation to waste management planning, which is the area, I suppose, that covers maybe the governance and getting club management and club personnel firstly and initially involved in this type of initiative. And then in addition to that, then having a look at what the current situation is within a club before you start embarking on any, recycling or waste segregation or waste prevention initiatives, because it's really important to be able to show over time how your club has improved in relation to how you manage waste. And the only way that you can definitely successfully do that is get that snapshot at the start. And then as you progress, you'll be able to look back and say, well, we've moved from 0 recycling to 80% recycling over time. So that would be our first bit of advice. And then once you've had a look at, that whole auditing side of things, it's very easy then to identify where the gaps are or where the issues are in relation to waste and waste arising in the club. And that's where the whole planning process, I suppose, kicks in. And within the toolkit that we've produced, there's a lot of information on governance, on auditing and planning, and we'll go through those in a few minutes, but it's just worth mentioning them now and keeping them at the back of your mind. So I think once a planning phase has been undertaken by a club, the next realistic approach would be to look at where waste can be prevented. And this is a big area for all of us now, whether it's at home, in the workplace, or certainly in clubs and in recreational activities in general, because it's unnecessary waste being produced. And I suppose that the big ones for clubs would be the single-use plastic bottles and the use of those, and then also the use of coffee cups and the disposable coffee cups that arise, in all kinds of scenarios. And I suppose it's important to mention, I suppose, at this point that, what we're talking about here in relation to these 4 steps, and in particular waste prevention, it doesn't matter if you're a very small club in a very rural, isolated area, or if you're a very large club in a densely populated urban area. The same principles apply here across all of the different initiatives, but in particular in relation to waste prevention. Once I think waste prevention has been looked at, the next logical step is to look at waste segregation. And what we have found over the last year and a half or so in working with phase 1 clubs, for the most part, and it's no fault of anybody's, it's just the way things evolved over time. But for the most part, what we were finding is that clubs in general usually have just 1 bin. Now, there are exceptions, of course, and there are clubs who have quite good segregation at this point. But, on par, generally it's 1 bin. So that in itself, I suppose, is a good starting point for clubs on this journey, because, the only way is up, and there's a lot of room for improvement. So when we look at waste segregation, the guidance that we've produced will help clubs increase levels of recycling within clubs, and also will help clubs improve the waste infrastructure that they have in place. And what I mean by that is we don't expect clubs to put huge amounts of money into purchasing new fancy bins. The bins you have are fine. It's just ensure that everybody knows what goes into each bin, and we'll talk more about that in the next couple of slides. And then finally, the 4th key area that it's really worth considering and keeping in mind as you embark on this journey is that no matter what you do and no matter what actions you undertake as part of your key areas of 1, 2, and 3, it's really important to be successful in those areas that everybody in the club and in the wider community know what you're trying to do. So communicating your actions to your club and to your club members and your wider community, as I said, is really, really important. And again, as we go through the presentation, we'll show you some ways of doing that and just guide you in the right way for when you want to undertake this in your own clubs. So just to give you a snapshot, we have produced a toolkit that will help you implement those 4 key steps that I'm after going through. This is just a sample of the visuals here, just to give you a flavour of what's available, and that you'll recognise them when you see them when you go on to the GAA Green Club's website yourself in due course. So just kicking off, and to talk about these documents in detail, the first one we're going to talk about is in relation to the area of waste planning and governance. And what we have produced, in conjunction with the phase 1 clubs, is this whole idea of having a waste management charter that the club executive will buy into and adopt, and then that this type of charter would be something that you would have very visible throughout your club. for all your members and all the people who enter your club to see. Now, this charter is available. It's in the toolkit, and it's available in an editable format. So the content is pretty generic, and it covers just what I'm after talking through there in sections 1 to 4. But if you wanted to leave out any of those sections, or you weren't comfortable with any of those sections, this charter is editable. So just to mention that again, for when you're having a look at this yourself on site. Then in addition to having a charter, I mentioned the whole idea of and the importance of planning, and then based on that planning, having a look at some auditing. So we've produced again some tools to help you along with this. So you can see there on the left, there are some guidance documents on waste auditing, and this will help you take a snapshot or, quantify the amount and type of waste that you're producing in your club. Now, we've produced a couple of different guidance documents here. There's some bells and whistle audits that you can do if you're very enthusiastic and have a lot of time on your hands. And then there's some guidance on doing just some simple visual audits as well. Irrespective of which auditing process you think you'll undertake, the outcome pretty much is generally the same. And what the auditing process allows you to do is, with that snapshot, give you the information that you need to put a plan together for waste management within your club. So you can see the pink sheet here. We've included this sheet in the template or in the toolkit as well. And this sheet outlines, this is just one of 2 parts of the sheet. It outlines all the different activities that you could potentially engage with or undertake as part of your action plan. And then, of course, there's opportunities for you to add in additional actions that you might be interested in yourself locally that aren't included on this plan. And what you can do is you can flush out the action in terms of what you'd like to do. And then you can, in the 3rd column there, you can assign responsibility, and you can set your time frame, and you could possibly put a potential cost to whichever actions you're looking at. Now, for the most part, a lot of these actions don't have a cost, but we included it in there just for some of the actions that you might undertake, later on after, maybe looking at the first most important ones. So it's just, I wanted to flag that with you, so as you'd know that these documents are connected and that one follows on and leads into the other. But I suppose what I'm talking you through here this evening is also in a guidance document on the site that you can have a look at as well, just to give you guidance in terms of what each document is for. So then moving on to the next section, which is the section on waste prevention. This is really, really important, and it's a big area, and with a lot of the circular economy actions that everybody's talking about now, and the climate policy and the climate actions that everybody's talking about, waste prevention is really up there at the top of the list. So we've produced and refined some of the guidance documents that we've originally produced on the whole area of eliminating items potentially in green clubs. So we have guidance there on the elimination of single-use plastic bottles. You'll see that there on the left of the screen. And we have guidance here if you're looking at either a complete ban from a specific date, or if you're looking at a softer approach to the elimination of plastic bottles, where you're looking at maybe introducing the elimination on a phased basis with different other themes leading out. And on that guidance document as well, we've also included a calculator at the bottom of page 2, and that will allow you to just enter some information, and it will quickly calculate for you how many plastic bottles you can potentially save over the course of a week, a month, and a year. So it's very useful information, because it's something that definitely encourages people to participate more. And then similarly, on the elimination of coffee cups, we have guidance there as well, again, whether you're looking at a complete ban or a phased introduction. And then thirdly, just there included in the middle, there's also information on gear swapping and swapping of boots and so on in your club. And again, this is a really important area because for a number of different reasons, both socially and environmentally. And again, this is something that lends itself very well to GAA clubs. So there's information there on how to run a gear swap and what you need to do and what you need to look out for. So it's worth saying that some of the participants in phase 1 did a lot of work on the elimination of single-use bottles and also looked at the whole issue of coffee cups. So Brian, who's going to talk to you later on, did a lot on the bottles and the elimination of the bottles, and Peter Boland and the team in Clarenbridge in Galway had a look at the coffee cups and what could be done around engagement and community engagement in reducing coffee cups. So there's a lot of good stuff happening as a result of phase 1. So then into the whole area of waste segregation. Again, there's a lot of guidance available within the toolkit for this. So you see on the screen there, on the left-hand side of the screen, there's detailed information on, how you can go about implementing waste segregation in your club. And then on the right there, you can see the various posters and bin labels that are available to clubs, outlining what goes into the recycling stream, the food stream, and the general stream, and so on. And these posters that are visible here on the right-hand side of the screen to clubs free of charge. And you can either download them from mywaste.ie or you can order them free of charge from mywaste.ie. And these have proved to be really beneficial and helpful to clubs undertaking the whole area of waste segregation. So it's a really good resource, and I'd encourage you all to have a look at that and download those assets. Then just moving on finally to the whole area of communication, and the importance of communicating to your wider club membership what you're doing can never be underestimated or I suppose encouraged enough. So it's really important that people grasp what you're doing and that they want to participate, because without participation, you're going nowhere really. So to help you along that journey, we've produced a whole suite of assets that will help you, from the poster, the charter. We've produced different kinds of posters that are suitable for having in your clubhouse, and then we have a whole range of assets that are suitable for social media, and some of them you can edit yourselves and put the club name in, and then others are generic. And similar to the posters that I showed you here in this previous one, all of these assets that we have, whether they're posters or social media, Irish and bilingually. So I think that's something that resonates a lot with a lot of the clubs, and something that the clubs like to use, particularly I think a lot of the bilingual signage. So just to mention that that's all there and available for you. So that's pretty much I'm just coming to the end really of what I have to say, because I don't want to labour too much, but just to give you a flavour of maybe what I'm after talking about in action. We did or produced some short videos last year in conjunction with the different clubs. So all of that content is available on the website, but I've just taken one snapshot here just to show you very quickly.
Before we started the Green Clubs Initiative, Waste Management Club was bin everything into it.
What we've done is we've taken out a large number of general waste bins from around our grounds, and this is encouraging people to seek out the recycling to try to segregate where possible.
The big changes I've seen, like
so that's just a snapshot of one of the short videos that we produced. And as I said, you can have a look at those other videos on the screen on the site. So this is the final slide. Just where to find all this information. I'm sure Mita will be talking about this later on, but you'll see it. It's that purpley raspberry pinky color. And once you click on that icon, it'll bring you into the waste segregation, and all the assets are available under the different down arrows as you see them there. And that's just the one that is open there is the communication asset. So everything can be downloaded and used, and there's links there to mywaste.ie to order the posters and so on. So I'm available afterwards for some questions. I know Brian is going to talk a little bit now in Park Ratheniska, but as I said, I'm happy to cover any questions you have afterwards.
Thanks a million, Sinead. And I know you're in a hurry, Brian. So we saw a bit of what's happening in the club there. But if you'd like to just come in there and maybe share a bit of what worked for you and maybe a few tips, the impact that had in the club, and a few tips for other clubs that would like to do what you did, especially maybe in the single-use plastic reduction. But I know you did a lot in waste management and segregation in general. So
yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me on. And my name is Brian Ramsbottom. I'm Secretary of Parkrat Taneska GAA Club in County Laois. You may not have known of us, or that name might be vaguely familiar to you, but next week it'll become one of the largest towns in Ireland when the National Ploughing Championships land in here. So I know I've got a couple of neighbours in the group chat here as well, I see. So yeah, look, I was very lucky or unlucky, I'm not sure. Mida contacted me back in late December and asked me would I be interested in getting involved in this Green Club initiative, and I'm actually delighted she did. It's been a great experience for myself, for the club, and it was like any of these things, you're a little bit daunted by it at the start. You're a little bit concerned that, you know, it's going to be more work on the same people, but we found it to be a brilliant experience and something that's growing within the club ever since. So we'd like to think we're a progressive club here in Parkrat and Eska, and we're always looking for new ways to improve and assist our community and getting more involved in our community. So I'm sure, look, the journeys you're setting out on today was very similar to what we did. And all I can say is, look, fair play to you for taking it to this point, and don't be daunted by it. I think you're actually in for a great journey and something that's going to leave long-lasting effects both in your club and in your community. And so, as Sinead was saying there, the toolkit, which is something we all contributed towards, it was in its infancy when we started, and I found it very, very helpful to start off with anyway. I mean, the first thing we were recommended to do was to set up our Green Committee. And I thought this was actually very good, because what it did was it allowed us draw in more people in the community who had an interest in sustainability and recycling and waste management and these sort of things. So straight away it took some of the burden off the usual people who'd, in all the clubs, I just look around the attendees and I see a lot of secretaries and treasurer names, and generally it's us who seems to get these jobs. But I would recommend setting up a Green Committee as soon as you can, and from that point of view then you can, you know, parse out the work and get more information on board from the very start. So in the beginning, yeah, as you saw in the toolkit by Sinead, we were recommended to do our desktop audit. As I said earlier, it was late 2020 when we got involved, and it was COVID related. So I guess we had an easier lead into this than some of you did, because a lot of our stuff was desktop audits. We were doing it at a distance. We couldn't actually even enter the GAA club at the time. So what we found was our audit showed us that we were producing something close to 550 kilograms per year of general waste, while our recycling waste was somewhere in the mid 300s. So straight away we could see that, look, we were producing a lot of general waste and we're also producing a lot of recyclable waste. So what we thought we'd do initially was we would get involved and see was there a way of minimizing our general waste and doing something about recyclable waste. So as pointed out, we had a lot of people, we had a lot of just one bins. Anyone who's been in our club, we have the most beautiful bins painted with the club colours and club jerseys, and they all look great, but everybody tosses everything into them. You'd be amazed what you find in them. I was convinced at one point people were bringing waste from home and throwing them into them. So what we did was we took away a large number of these general waste bins and just took them out of circulation entirely, and then introduced some recycling bins. So straight away we encourage people to go to one area of the club where they could seek out different recycling bins and the lesser general waste bins. So that was our first step, and that immediately saw us turn around our general waste, lower it, almost invert it to what it was from general waste to recycling. And the next part of it then was one of our Green Club members suggested the amount, well, focused in on the amount of reusable bottles that were appearing in our recycling bins. So on Sinead and Mita's suggestion, we decided that we would try and isolate all the single-use bottles that were being thrown into our bins. So we kind of collected them, put them to one side in a shed, and just said, right, we'll just see what happens here after a couple of weeks, after a couple of months. And we could see all the single-use bottles. So we wondered how we could turn this about. And with the help of the Regional Waste Management and Laois County Council, we were able to get a supply of reusable bottles. And our reusable bottles, then we could distribute them to the young kids. And we wanted to start at the younger age groups if we could. So we concentrated on our rascals, under 7s, 9s, 11s, up to about 15s anyway, and said, look, if we could change their mindset, that, you know, it could change the mindset of the others. So thanks to them, we got, I don't know if this can be seen here now, we got a number of these bottles, and this is the one that was handed out to my own son some 2 years ago, and still in use, a little bit chawed, all right, but still in use and still taken care of. So what we were trying to do was encourage that they bring their bottles and take it away and leave no waste, leave no trace. And that was our motto in the club, no waste, no trace. And we showed them then, we brought out the reusables, or the single-use bottles. We brought a couple of bags of them and just threw them all out on the ground and said, look, this is what's been brought to the club over the last 2 months. And it's our hope that this can be cut out immediately, or, you know, to a large extent. So it was informative for us all, and so much so that both our adult senior teams both got involved in the initiative as well and sourced their own single-use bottles, or sorry, reusable bottles as opposed to single-use, and they began to do it as well. So look, it's been an interesting journey. We've been delighted with it. We've learned a lot about it, and the kids are brilliant at it, and the adults have become that way too. And what it's done is we were able to get the information out there about our waste charter and how we manage waste within the club and how we segregate waste. And we did that with the signage around the club, and we got signs from the Green Club initiative here that we could put on our bins. And we also got very active on our social media and our own internal, you know, GA messaging service to let them know what we expect and so on. And you can see the effect. It's been massive so far, and hopefully it'll continue. So, I mean, the long-term effects for us, I guess education is the key in everything, and our club members are better educated in what we expect and what they should be doing. And as Sinead pointed out as well, I mean, waste management is massive within, you know, your whole sustainability and becoming a better society. So if we can do that within our community, we're at the grassroots, and everybody here within this meeting, I suppose, is at the grassroots of your community. You're embedded in your community. So that's a great way to get the message out, I guess, from a not just GA point of view, but from a community point of view. So from our perspective, we've taken on board this. We've also taken on board the other elements of the Green Club. So we're currently upgrading our floodlights, and we're getting help from the toolkit on that element within the Green Club. We've spoken with SEAI. We were lucky to make contacts through this that we could use to our benefit going forward. And we've put in a new GA walkway, a wellness walkway within our club. And again, that's fully lit with LED lights. And, you know, this sort of information wouldn't have been we would have had to go seek it out. Whereas with the Green Club and with the toolkit and with the contacts we've made, it was all at the touch of a finger. It was at our fingertips to find out. So I think there's so much to be garnered and gained from this that I don't think you'll regret what you're doing here from your own a selfish point of view, your club point of view, but also from a societal point of view. We've definitely only scratched the surface of what we're doing. We're certainly not done with the Green Club, and I'm delighted that I was invited back here to talk on it tonight. While it was mentioned earlier, we've also done the boot swap, your hurl swap, a helmet swap, gear swap. So I think anybody who's thinking about doing that, definitely do it. We all have kids in it, and we know we've perfectly good football boots and helmets that are sitting in the corner of a press that, you know, especially with hurls and helmets, hurling is an expensive sport to get into for a child who might just drop it in a month's time. So parents might not make the leap, but if they thought they could get a hurl and a helmet for free, that might bring more people into your club. So look, there's pros and cons. There's far more pros to this whole process than cons. And look, I wish you all the very best with it. And if there's anything myself or I can do to help, I'd be delighted to help out. Like I said, it's been a pleasure to deal with Mida, Sinead, Jimmy, Pádraig as well. And I wish you all the very best with it anyway.
Thanks a million. Like, Brian, that was just perfect. You know, that was, I think you had everything in there, like just the practical, the figures, your own experience, and you made the green, you know, you really sold the Green Club. I know, even though everyone here is a member, and it just from a personal point of view, and I can see Pádraig smiling too. What's particularly gratifying is what you said there about getting the information, because at the very start, myself and Pádraig had a conversation, and I said to Pádraig, like, as someone involved in the club, what should a Green Club toolkit do? And he said from his experience, it took them 6 months to find out some of their information. And what he wanted was a toolkit that would, you know, save that time on clubs. And I know we're probably not perfectly there. We're not there with nothing, like, we're always wanting to improve. So we're always open to feedback. But the clubs, by just saving time and already overstretched volunteers, by putting some of that information online is great. So thanks a million for that, Brian. I know perhaps you have to go now, but yeah, again, Brian is always there. I know a few other clubs, you know, he's always happy to share his experience. So thanks a million for that, Brian. Really appreciate it.
No matter, happy out.
Thanks. And I'd like to say thanks. I didn't, because we were kind of rushed in there, but a huge, like, I think the role of Sinead, you know, the regional waste management authorities have been a fantastic partner since the beginning. But Sinead, you know, engaging with clubs like Perth and Ratheniska in the pilot phase to build those learnings. They've really led the way in, you know, in developing the toolkit as well for the waste. And they had the Irish language version of the toolkit available. It's not actually online yet. We've been updating the website, as some of you might have seen. And so the Irish versions aren't up yet, but we have them available. So if anybody wants those Irish language versions and they don't have them, please just email me and we'll send them on to you. But just before we proceed from that, I just might have, since we had heard from that, I know we have Peter. Peter, I'll put you on the spot so you can tell me that you don't want to say anything, but I see we have Peter from Clarenbridge there, who was also one of those initial 5 clubs that worked with Sinead in kind of developing the toolkit and trialing the toolkit. I don't know, is there anything you wanted to add to Brian, or slightly different from Brian's experience there for you over in the west of Ireland?
Yeah, thanks, Mida, for that. Myself and Una Fallon from Clarenbridge are on the call this evening. And look, I was smiling the whole way through Brian's presentation because it echoes precisely what we've experienced. So I'm not going to repeat it all. But I would say Sinead's help in putting together our waste management plan was absolutely invaluable, because we were really, it felt like feeling around in the dark at the start. But we have made tremendous progress. Even on small things like the amount of littering has decreased dramatically around the club, because people are just more conscious of the waste management issue. It comes with tons of challenges, and Brian's point about having a committee is absolutely critical. And better still, if there are people who are not directly involved in the club. You know, everything about the club is about being outward looking nowadays. And if you can get people who have the right disposition out in the community to get engaged, I think that's a real piece of value added. But there are little details like the bins that we put out, the segregated bins, have become very useful over the last year for storing flags and lost property and all other stuff that they've been seconded to. And so it takes a fair bit of vigilance to keep all the bins in place. Even small details like bin colours, all the domestic bins around Clarenbridge, the recycling bins are blue, but the general waste bin that we received into the club, the commercial one, the general waste bin is blue. And it's been taking some time for people to get used to that. But look, that's working over time. The coffee cup thing is intractable, because people have quite strong views, because they've been convinced by advertising that they're completely compostable or completely recyclable, and so they struggle to get the segregation thing on it sorted. So I think we will be moving towards elimination at this stage as probably the only sensible approach at this stage. But in the meantime, the cooperation of all the coffee shops locally in discounting for reusable cups has been very handy from our point of view. One other challenge from our point of view has been visiting teams and communicating to them. And I think that's something that the growing number of green clubs around the country is going to help on. Just on the awareness, like obviously, same as Rahaniska, we were in right at the start. So there's a distinct lack of awareness about the green club thing. But even I found in the last few weeks, visiting clubs are more willing to cooperate. So that's terrific. One other last thing from our point of view, we've just completed our sports capital application in the 2023 round. And whilst green clubs are mentioned, it almost felt like it was an afterthought. We'll be very interested to see how many points are allocated to the Green Club initiative when the scoring comes out. But I would hope that over time it will be properly integrated into the sports capital application scheme, because it's been invaluable from our point of view. And one last point from us, again, something Brian referred to, getting up and running on the waste management has meant that the club is far more confident about getting up and running on biodiversity. And on transport, we've applied for the EV chargers through ZEVI, for example. And on energy, again, we're installing solar panels and putting in additional energy saving mechanisms in the club. So look at it, it's like stabilizers. What Sinead and Mida and Jimmy and everybody else have done is give us a little bit of self-confidence and give us the chance to get up and running on a whole range of initiatives.
That's brilliant. Thanks. Thanks a million, Peter. And actually, I see Una there now, and I think it's a great thing, because I know you had difficulty at the beginning, you know, recruiting. It can be hard, like it's not always easy recruiting. So I know, Una, you had a bit of a challenge at the beginning, but to see where you've driven on now, I think it's absolutely fantastic. So thanks a million to you both, because I know the two of you really drove it in the club. You put a huge amount in, and it's great to see that you feel that your effort has paid off there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And thanks, mostly I'd like to thank Peter, because there's only one word: he was absolutely forensic, particularly in his pursuit of the composition of coffee cups. He was absolute. If anyone wants any help with regard to coffee cups, Peter Boland, Clarenbridge, is your man.
I'm sure he's delighted you've added this
absolutely
extra.
Forensic.
Yeah, well, that's great, because that's what the Green Club is about. It is about like, if someone else has done it, no point, you know, having to go off do the same yourself. So it is about that sharing. And it's been great hearing those club voices, but I am conscious that, you know, Sinead, that the principles of good waste management and good elimination of single-use plastic is very much it's very much these are universal, like uncontestable principles. But we do know, even Peter mentioned even the bins there, but there are variations between areas, but also between the two jurisdictions. So what I'm just going to do before opening to the Q&A is just talk a little bit about some of the practical differences between the 26 counties and the 6 counties. And I'm going to be kind of switching between it'll be very short, but between screens here. So just bear with me, because I'm going to be switching between just the websites and my presentation. So hopefully here. So I suppose there's a few, even though very annoyingly with the waste bin privatised in the south, so it means there's different coloured bins in different areas, and it's very confusing for everybody. But I suppose an easier thing is in the 26 counties, we all know what goes into what bin, and there can be variations in the 6 counties. And I see some people on this call who definitely know it better than I do. But there's actually some really handy tools which you might be familiar with in the 6 counties. There's this tool called Recycle Now, and you can either put your postcode in an item, or what I find is really good to do, and Jimmy, you might put the Recycle Now links in the chat at some stage so people have them. If you go to here to, I think this goes where to recycle, you can put in your postcode. So I'm putting in a postcode here, hopefully from Fermanagh Omagh. And if I live in the Fermanagh Omagh district, it will show me exactly what I can put in my bin, which is there. One of the big differences, I suppose, between north and south at the moment is in the south, soft plastics can go into recycling, and in I think in nearly all of the councils in the north, soft plastics can't go into the recycling. But if you're not sure, it's very useful here to go to your council area. And it will also give you, if you go to that page, it will also give you a link to your own council area. So in the case of Fermanagh Omagh, if I click there, it will bring me to my Fermanagh Omagh page and show and give the same details. It should be the exact same information, but it can also give me some extra information on my council area. And just to show you that it can vary from council to area to council area, I might put one in from Derry City and Strabane, which is kind of exceptional in this because it's the only, oh, that's not where I'm meant to be. Because if I put in here for, and I go again to my recycle bin, we have both the two, Derry and City and Strabane, can have different ones. It's one of the only areas that do textiles and electricals, and sometimes they can go into different bags. So this is definitely worth going to your council webpage and checking things out there, or getting in touch with your local authority, because textiles and electricals aren't taken in most of the other areas. And for example, I do a final one just so you can see how it varies across areas. And let's see if we can, and I do a final one here from Causeway Coast and Glen. And we can see here that again, they have metal here, they have plastic packaging, and they tell you exactly what kind of things are, and again, they'll have the link. If I go back, they'll have the link to the recycling area. So if you're unsure what goes in your bin, the local authorities there really have fantastic resources. And for some of you, sorry, I'm just going to change here from slide. As well, for the 6 counties, there's also food waste legislation that you might be aware of that won't be applicable to all clubs, but it will for some. So if you see here, the Environment Agency says if you generate more than 5 kilograms of food waste, you must have a separate food waste collection. And it says businesses, but as it says here, that can refer to social clubs, schools, and not-for-profit organisations. So some GA clubs that maybe have social centres or will fall under that. And again, your council page will have information that will help you with that. And next page. So on the Green Club Toolkit on the landing page, there's if you're hopefully you're all familiar with the toolkit of this page, but if you go to the Green Club Toolkit online, and if you need more advice, you will have your council contacts there. I'd say most of you are well on top of this, but just in case, there are council contacts there who have been briefed on the Green Club Toolkit and may be able to offer you support if you need additional support with your waste management on site. As you know yourselves, resources and engagement can vary from council area to council area, but we've had a very good experience to date with the council officers. And if you have ever any feedback on how you get on with the council officers, actually, we're always really happy to hear that. And I know we have a guest just listening in today, Maria from Keep Northern Ireland Beautiful. Maria, we're delighted to have you. So Keep Northern Ireland Beautiful also run a number of programmes in terms of not waste management, but litter management. A lot of you may be familiar with the Adopt a Spot programme and may have used an Adopt a Spot kit. And Keep Northern Ireland Beautiful are working on a guide for sports clubs at the moment for waste and plastic. So that will be coming down the road, and I know it will feature at least one of the green clubs, at least one, I think. Dungan and Clark's, I think, are on. Hopefully I shouldn't be saying that in case they're not featured in it, but I know they've been very involved, so they've definitely been working with Keep NI Beautiful. So watch this space. That's for sports clubs in general, but with an influence there from some of our some of the green clubs who are on this call today. And we saw a good bit from Brian. We heard from Brian and Peter there about their efforts to eliminate single-use plastic, and here's, it's been done by a number of our Phase 1 green clubs too, have really had good success with this, and even some of our Phase 2 ones there, as I said, mentioned Dungan and Clark's, who have also recently been awarded a Green Flag Award, so congratulations to them. But for any other clubs who haven't yet taken your steps on this journey and would be interested, keep NI Water, who are also a partner of this program. They do go out to clubs and they supply them with these water bottles similar to these ones you see here. So Jimmy, I think you have Pat's email address, Pat Macaulay from NI Water. He's been out to a number of clubs already, and he's happy to share his email address if any other club would be interested in this. And moving a little bit away from the waste, when he's out in your site with the water bottles, he'd really be really interested in helping any club with water conservation advice, or they also have a number of water butts if you want to do some rainwater collection. Pat will be happy to talk to clubs about any water conservation, saving water, addressing leaks, or collecting water in water butts. So please just feel free to get in touch with Pat, and he's always happy to help out green clubs, and he's been great to work with. And then we had just some clubs mentioned, Sinead mentioned the gear swaps, and Peter mentioned it too. And so it's something that gained traction, that was there, that there were a few comments in the chat on as well. So that's another, I saw on Clonduff, another green club, I'm not sure if they're online today, but another phase 2 club, they recently did a gear swap in their club. So it's something that clubs that have done it really find it successful. There's tips in the toolkit on it. And I saw there was a comment there as well about maybe getting more information out there on the impact of fast fashion. And we are fast fashion in a lot of ways. In the green clubs, we get teams want new gear every year, and not only playing gear. Playing gear, we need it. We need it to play in, but we like to have our half zips. I'm as guilty as everybody. Bags and all that. So it's worth thinking about the impact. So I think I take on board that comment that was put in the chat about maybe if we had more information, people's behaviour would change. So we'll look at what maybe we can do there. But and it is an area we are looking at national level in the GAA. How can we develop a bit more and do better at national level? But in the meantime, what we have found, sometimes even if not even the gear, but even the packaging, the gear comes in, often things can come all individually packaged. So sometimes it's worth just picking up the phone to your gear supplier and saying, look, we don't want this much packaging in the future. Can you arrange with the manufacturers that not everything is individually packaged? We don't need everything individually packaged. You can make small differences that way, and then together we can work together to cut down actually the impact of textiles and sport together. So that's go back here. That's all I wanted to say on that. And let me just stop sharing my screen. I might hand over to Porrig and Jimmy, I know, maybe to launch a Q&A, and as well, not only questions from you and answers from us, but also some people on this call have answers themselves from your own experience in clubs. So as well as questions, we're really, really happy to hear suggestions or experiences from clubs. Yeah, thanks.
Thanks very much, Mida. Just a link to recyclenow.com is in the chat, as is Pat Macaulay's email address from Northern Ireland Water. The other council links that you provided me with, Mida, do you want them to be put in the chat?
Yeah, if you just want to put them in as one link, I just put in for people from the 6 counties, each council page has a recycling page. So we've just put a list of those links there. They'll come up in the chat there, probably a little bit messily, but just so they're there for if you don't already have them.
That's perfect. They're gone in there. I know you referenced Caroline's query there about data in relation to fast fashion. Caroline, you did have your hand up. Do you want to come in there and make another comment?
I think you've kind of, thanks, Jimmy. I think I probably answered the question. I suppose just to say as well, September is second-hand September, so maybe it's a good opportunity for us to maybe do something. Maybe we're thinking their own club to do a jersey swap or a kit swap. I suppose the advantage, while it might be fast fashion, it is actually very hard wearing. So I suppose lots of us as parents have washed many kits that do last a long time. So when you are swapping, you're getting something that will last you a long time. So I suppose that's an advantage to it. But I suppose maybe it might be an opportunity with second-hand September to try and do something in our own clubs. But thanks very much.
Yeah, no, thanks, Caroline. Really interesting point there as well. Right, second-hand September, I wasn't aware of that. I know somebody had a query out there, which I've never actually come across before, but is there anywhere where footballs can be repaired? Does anybody on the call know of an answer to that question? Because I don't. No? That was Paddy, sorry, in Bective Gaelic Football Club. Sorry, Paddy, that you seem to be at a loss there.
Yes, maybe we might ask it. We might ask about it.
We'll ask about it internally here and see if anybody can raise an answer to that. And I think that's all of the questions in the chat referred to. I might mention at this point you had a sports capital grant process, which was of course limited to clubs in the 26 counties, and did, as was pointed out there, reference sustainability as an emphasis this year, as well as inclusion. And I think those two emphases will continue and be reinforced in future versions of sports capital grant applications and a lot of other grants that might be applicable and available to sports and community organisations. We would have some points to bring back to government, as suggested there in the chat, in relation to how sustainability and the idea of becoming a green club was actually integrated into the application process. There wasn't a lot of guidance on that, nor was there any scoring published in advance, nor could you upload any additional documentation. So while our Green Club toolkit was heavily referenced in the guidance document for the sports capital grant, and I suppose we should be somewhat flattered to see that happened. We're not sure exactly what referencing it in any application a club made will do for the success or otherwise of their application, but we'll be keeping a close eye on that. I know some clubs did reach out looking for testimonies to their participation. There is a full list of all green clubs in phase 2 published on the GAA website, and I know when I uploaded my sports capital grant application for Dunmanwich last week, I stuck in that link, which was verification that my club is in the programme. That's something we'll be keeping an eye on. We'll open it up there to other contributions for a few moments, or other questions, specifically around the waste thematic area. And then if there's not any other comments after that, we'll look at some of some other things I'd like to point out to clubs at the moment, and some next steps. So is there any other queries or questions around the waste thematic area there at the moment?
There's a query there. I think it's about the portal. Jimmy, just
see.
Yeah,
so I'm going to come back to that now in a second, mate, in the final slides. Yeah. I'd say that's a bot there, Anthony Clarn. If not, you may reveal yourself. Okay. So no other queries, yeah.
Not a bot. Anthony isn't a bot. Sorry.
So why is my name on these comments? I don't know.
Yeah, your name hadn't come up on the comments from me before that, Anthony. That was the first one you came in on. Sorry.
Okay, I'm sorry. Apologies for the accusation there, Anthony. Hard to know these days. Okay, I'm going to share my screen and briefly cover off some outstanding comments and queries, and refer to the portal there. First off, I would just, in terms of
sorry, is there a hand up there, Jimmy? Sorry, or is that an existing hand from Milltown? Sorry, in Westmeath. Is there a hand up there?
Good call, Media. Yeah, go ahead there. Who have we? Sorry, Milltown, Westmeath, Treasure is the reference in the participant attendance there. Do you want to unmute and ask a question?
Maybe it was an accidental raised hand, but feel free to cut in if
Okay, I'll continue. So the GAALearning platform has been updated there over the last few weeks. If you haven't visited it in the interim, sorry, is there somebody coming in there now?
No, Jimmy, just a comment that there's a problem. Milltown have the problem with the microphone. So.
Okay, well, if they want to put the question in the chat, I can take it there. I'll continue. So if you haven't been on the website recently, it has had a facelift, and the Green Club Toolkit is still at the same URL, learning.gaa.ie/Green Club. All of the PDFs and video resources that were there previously should be there. The intention of the facelift was that the website would be more accessible through a mobile interface, and there is some functionality there that will be integrating into Toolkit and courses over time that wasn't available to us previously. We had to update the interface as the version of the application it was running on was about to be the support for it from the company who managed it was about to come to end of life. And so that was a significant project overseen by our GAALearning manager, David Sweeney. And hopefully it presents the great work that was completed by MEDA and the Phase 1 clubs in developing the guidance with our expert partners in a more presentable format. That has meant that we have had a delay, as MEDA referred to, in terms of publishing the Irish language versions of the toolkit, but we will be attending to that in the coming weeks. Okay, sorry, did Alan want to come in there? Hand has gone down again, I think, possibly.
Yeah, if you want to, Milton have put a question up, but if you want to go on with this, Jimmy, and we can come back to that question after.
Okay. So hopefully you can still see my screen. If clubs are anxious about their progress, don't be. It is an 18-month project, and time frame for the completion and reporting on your actions, and do follow the milestones which still exist at the same URL. We would expect that the majority of clubs are somewhere around steps 6, 7, potentially 8 at this time. If you do access the portal, you will be able to report on your completion of steps 1 through 6 as per the side navigation there, but you cannot review and report yet as we haven't designed the interface for that. The big thing that we need to know at this time is what actions you intend to take as informed by the toolkit. So, for example, are you installing LED floodlighting, or are you designing your own waste initiative and indicating to us that that is what you're going to do? A lot of clubs who have had access to the portal have begun to identify those actions. To speak specifically to the query there about accessing the portal, if you haven't had access, we have had to design a separate process for any club that didn't use the portal to apply to be in phase 2 of the program. That process has now been troubleshooted, and I am having to deal with clubs one by one to provide them with access to the portal. So it is through the Green Clubs at GAA.ie email, and we're actually really there's been a lot of issues with that, and it won't happen, I suppose, for phase 3 clubs, because the system will be reinforced to deal with all clubs from the outset. But you will receive an email once I upload your club specifically, giving you access, and then you can go through the steps, log your progress, and identify what you're going to do. The minimum threshold, again, importantly, for recognition at the end of the process is 2 initiatives, 2 actions from 2 separate thematic areas, but you can indicate that you're going to complete 10, 12 actions. I wouldn't recommend that, but some clubs have done that. I think we are definitely promoting a phased approach and a gradual approach to build momentum around the program. There is a side project, for want of a better term, that we have now been funded to deliver. The funding has come through the Community Climate Action Programme strand through government funding from the Department of the Environment that is administered by An Pobal. It is again relevant to only clubs within the 26 counties. And what we've been funded to do is to develop a community engagement model or toolkit. So what's in our toolkit at the moment is the guidance on how to implement specific actions under each of the thematic areas. What we haven't included in the toolkit is how to help clubs to engage with the communities in their catchment area, in particular if those communities include disadvantaged or marginalised groups. And I suppose the government's emphasis here for the fund is in line with the concepts of leaving no one behind. And obviously, one of the values of the organisation, our organisation, is inclusion. And what we'll be seeking for support in terms of developing this community model is contributions from clubs who have challenges or have had successes in dealing with disadvantaged and marginalised groups within their catchment areas. We'll also be accessing support from expert organisations like Burn Bio over in the Burn and Cultivate, which are based in the Eco Village in Cloughjordan, on the development of the model. So look out for an email there, and there will be a gathering on Saturday fortnight in the Anbrook Hotel in Mullingar. It will be limited in its capacity, and it will look specifically at that project. Our intention is to hold a community of practice webinar. It's something we've been meaning to hold over the last number of weeks, but I'd like to propose a date for that on the evening of Wednesday, October the 11th, and it will be designed to not for us to share information with you, but for you to share information with your fellow clubs around specific projects you're undertaking. Share the successes, the challenges, the failures, so that we can learn from each other and integrate the best parts of that into the next iteration of the toolkit. We have a commitment also to hold a further series of regional events for Phase 2 clubs in person, face-to-face, over November, December, January. And as a project management meeting, we'll be actually meeting on Friday, September 29th, to try and schedule those dates and communicate them to you. We would ask, and it's good practice, I think, and you would even again have seen it there in the sports capital grant application. One of the ways that people know about what you're doing these days is by posting it on social media. If you are posting on social media about your Green Club activities, please tag at GA Community or hashtag GA Green Club, and we will then be aware of it and can share that story across our network. Through our partnership with the local authorities and with the district councils in the 6 counties, groups are being established with representatives from GA, LGFA and Camogie county boards, as well as the local government and expert partners regionally. There's a meeting tomorrow to move forward the establishment of such a group in County Waterford, for example. So as counties begin to step up to establish these groups, and as local authorities appoint community climate action officers, you will see more examples of these county forums being established, and you may be contacted by a volunteer officer or a county secretary about your participation in this group. So that's just to let you know it's not something we're mandating from Croke Park. It's something that's happening organically and with our support, and those types of groups, as I say, are being established. I think that's all I have for the moment, but I'm happy to take any further queries or if there was anything else in the chat, Mita.
Yeah, just go back to that query from Milltown on the question was about is if there's any guidance on the portal on green waste composting that would be useful for clubs to put to use for recovering value from green or food waste generated at club grounds for pitch grounds enrichment. And we don't have any nice perfect answer there. It's an area we want to look at. I know a lot of clubs increasingly for grass cutting. For shorter grass cutting, you have clubs who are using mulching mowers, which means they don't get the grass buildup. But we have, I suppose something that we've been engaging with our partners on is for clubs that do have a grass waste buildup. What's the best way to deal with that? And as you mentioned there from Milltown, is there any way to put that to value? In terms of food waste, we have had some clubs doing things like trialing things on site, I think like small digesters. So what we might do is go around to some of the clubs we know had been thinking about things like that, seeing are there any case studies and tips we can share. But we don't have any perfect universal answer at the moment, and it is an area we want to do some more work on. But I don't know, Sinead, is there anything that you'd have to say in this at this point?
No, I suppose just to concur there, it's definitely something that has come up towards the end of phase 1. So I think we were looking at it with the biodiversity thematic area as well to see if they could give some advice and guidance on what would be the best approach, because there's obviously the pitch would require one type of mowing, and then the externals, there's opportunities there for wildflowers and to further enhance biodiversity. So it's definitely something we can come back to. On the food waste side of things, new regulations will come in over the coming months that will ensure that we all have to have food waste segregation bins. So when that comes in, we'll post that up on the site and make sure everybody's aware of it, because this will be relevant to clubs that generate a certain amount of food waste if they have canteens or whatever on site. But look, it's not for everybody, but it is an issue that needs to be addressed. And there is opportunity there to look at digesters and stuff, but if there's a curbside collection available, it is a really good option to consider as well, because the digesters, they're great and they're really good as an educational tool, as well as as a method of reducing and getting rid of your food waste. But for ease, I think a lot of clubs seem to like to go the curbside route and avail of a food waste collection if it's available to them.
Thanks, Sinead. Thanks for that. So that's
Okay,
it. There's no.
Sorry, go ahead. No queries.
No, I was going to say there's been no more comments. So yeah, Fáilte Róibh, so a gurb míle maith go an sin ó Milltown, so Fáilte Róibh. Yeah.
Okay, well, if that's the end of the queries, thank everyone for their participation, and enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thanks, Jimmy. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Jimmy. Thanks a million, Sinead.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks, everyone, for coming.
Yeah.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you, Slán.
Thank you.